Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Blevin Robinson with West Coast Cajun Cuisine, and today's video, smothered chuck roast. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here and you're interested in learning how to cook authentic Cajun cuisine, comfort food, and just about anything for that matter, then you've come to the right place. Click that subscription button and that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Now today's video is a chuck roast recipe that my family and friends actually request quite often. This stuff is so delicious. This is just straight up comfort food, man. I'm telling you. This is some good stuff. We fancied it up a little bit for the video, but basically what it is we're gonna take a nice chuck roast, we're gonna cut it into little cubes, we're gonna brown it, cook down some vegetables, we're gonna make a nice savory red wine gravy, and then just braise that chuck roast in there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, serve it over some mashed potatoes. Man, who doesn't love mashed potatoes and gravy? You know what I'm saying? Look, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to the kitchen and I'll show you how to make it. Alright, so we want to start off by prepping our meat. And I have about a 3-pound chuck roast here. Alright, now I've trimmed it up a little bit. You know, I've got some of the silver skin and fat off of here, but we're going to do that as we go along, alright? So I wasn't too worried about getting everything off right now. So I want to go ahead and cut this into a 1-inch slice. I want to try to make sure that it's evenly cut all the way through, and that's what we're going to do with this entire roast. We're just going to cut this down into 1-inch slices, okay? Now I'm going to show you, the whole process here with this first one that we cut. Now as you can see at the end here, we have this little chunk of fat. It's mostly fat. I mean, there's a little bit of meat on it, but I'm not too worried about that. We're going to square this up. I'm going to get rid of that little chunk. There's nothing really worth keeping on that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this here, I'm going to square it up a little bit, get it nicely shaped, and I'm going to cut a 1-inch strip off of here, right? And that's what we're going to do with this whole piece. We're just going to cut it into 1-inch strips like we're doing here. And then eventually what we'll do is we'll take those strips, we'll cut them down into 1-inch by 1-inch cubes. All right, now once we do that, we're going to throw this into a bowl. We're going to get it nice and seasoned and get it ready for browning. So this is pretty much what you want it to look like right here. Just a little 1-inch by 1-inch cube. And we're going to do this with the entire chuck roast. And when you come across these little chunks of fat stuff that you don't want, we're just going to go ahead and discard that and just keep on moving along here. All right, so now that we have the roast cut up the way we want, we're going to go ahead and put it in a bowl, and I'm going to put a little bit of seasoning on it. And once I do that, I just want to go ahead and mix it up, make sure that that seasoning is nice and dispersed. And it's not a lot of seasoning, I just want to go ahead and give it a good mix here. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit more seasoning. And I'm going to continue this process till I get a nice coating of seasoning on all of the meat here. Alright, so now we're going to get our vegetables prepped, and what I have here is, like always, that Cajun Trinity. I have a yellow onion, green bell pepper, I have some celery here. We're going to give this all a nice small dice. I have some garlic, some baby Bella. Now the mushrooms, it's okay, leave that a little bit chunky. We want to have some nice chunks of mushroom in this gravy. Everything else is just basically flavor, right? That's kind of how that Cajun Trinity works. It's like a seasoning, okay? Now the garlic, we're going to smash it, we're going to peel it, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time on it. I want to get a nice fine dice on the garlic. Now this seems like a lot, but trust me, it's going to be good. Alright, now that we have everything prepped, we're going to get ready to start cooking here. Now I have my Dutch oven. I got it heated up to about a medium high, and I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in here because we're going to start browning this meat. And the whole idea here is to just get some color on it. I don't care if you cook it all the way through, because I'm not going to. Alright, I just want to get some color on the outside. And after a few minutes, as you can see here, we got a nice Maillard reaction going on here is what they call it, when you get that nice browning on the meat. And I did this in batches because you don't want to overcrowd your pot, because then you're just going to release all of that moisture from the meat, and it's basically just going to boil it. So I did this in batches so that I can get that nice brown color. And this is the second batch. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. I got the color I want. And so what we're going to do from here is we're going to add our vegetables. All right. Now our vegetables are going to help deglaze this pan, because what we're going to do here is we're going to add a little salt. Now what the salt is going to do is help extract the moisture from the vegetables. All right. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons or so, just a couple pinches, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that, give it a good mix, cook it down for about 5 minutes. And you'll see here in a few how this works. All right. So after about 5 minutes, we add my garlic. Okay. Go ahead and put the garlic in there, give it a good mix. You want everything well incorporated. And as you can see, this pan is now deglazed, right? They don't have all of that dark stickiness on the bottom, and that was strictly just from the moisture from the vegetables. Now that we have our vegetables cooked down, I'm going to add some red wine. Now I'm using a Cabernet. You can use whatever red wine you want. Just make sure it's a wine you would prefer to drink. All right. So now that we have the wine in there, what we're going to do is just give it a good stir. We're going to bring this up to a simmer and let it reduce by about 3/4. All right, now that we have that on the sides at a simmer, we're going to make a roux. Now I took a little separate saucepan here. I heated it up to a medium heat. I added about 1/2 cup of canola oil, and then I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. All right, now I've made a roux 100 times, if not more. I can do it kind of by eye, but for you guys out there that need your measurements, go 1/2 cup to 1/2 cup. Okay, 1-to-1 ratio is usually how you make a roux. So once I get the flour in there, what we're going to do is just start stirring this, okay? You cannot stop. You got to mix this constantly, okay? Especially at a medium heat. Because if you don't, you'll burn the roux. It gets bitter. It gets nasty. You've got to start over again, all right? Now this is going to take probably 10 to 15 minutes of just constantly stirring. Because what we're trying to accomplish is a nice dark mahogany roux like we have here, okay? It might look kind of disgusting, but trust me, the darker you go with your roux, it starts to add a different flavor, a different complexity to the whole thing, okay? So once we get to that point, I'm going to add about 1 cup to 1.5 cups or so of beef stock, all right? And what I'm doing is I'm making a slurry. And this is going to make it a lot easier to add to the chuck roast later on and get that nice thick gravy that we're looking for, okay? So we're just going to go ahead and mix this around, let it thicken up, let it all come together. I want it to mix a little bit better, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of beef stock. But this is pretty much the process that we're going to do here. And then once we're done with this, we'll move on. Alright, so our 2 cups of red wine is now reduced down to probably about 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of wine. That's about where we want it. So from here, what we're going to do is add that slurry, that roux that we made. Now this is our thickening agent. This is what's going to make this a gravy. Alright, get as much of it as you can in there. And once we do that, bring everything together, give it a good mix, make sure it's well incorporated. Let it start to come back up to a simmer, because that's how it's going to start thickening up, okay? Now from here, if you let it go, it would be too thick, right? And we also want to add a little more flavor to this. So I'm going to add about 1 cup to 1.5 cups of beef stock. All right. Go ahead and give that a good mix. Make sure everything comes together as usual. And then we're going to go ahead and add the chuck roast that we cooked earlier, that we browned. So once we get the chuck roast in there, look, make sure you get all the juices and that accumulated and everything. That's just flavor. That's just more flavor. Do not get rid of that. All right. Put that in the pot. Get it well mixed, well incorporated here. And then what I'm going to do is just add the rest of the seasoning I had left over from when I was seasoning the meat before we browned it. All right. Get that in there. Make sure it's mixed. And then from here, we'll add our fresh herbs. All right. I have some fresh thyme, about 1 teaspoon, and some fresh oregano that I chopped up, about 1 teaspoon of that as well. So we're going to go ahead and make sure this is well mixed. And then we're going to put the lid on here, bring it down to a simmer, and we're just going to let it simmer for about an hour. So once we do that, we'll come back in an hour, check it out, and it's looking amazing right now. But there's just one more thing we're going to do to it. All right, we're going to add about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Once we get that in there, make sure it's well incorporated, give it a good mix, and we're going to let this cook uncovered for about 30 minutes or until you get the desired thickness that you want with your gravy. All right, for me it took about 45 minutes to get this reduced down to a thickness that I wanted. And then while this was all going on and we were letting that simmer, I made some mashed potatoes on the side. I also sauteed some asparagus, and this is what we ended up with. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, smothered chuck roast. You talk about super delicious and easy to make. Man, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. Now, next week's video, I'm going to show you how to make an amazing steak dinner that I actually prepared for my birthday. It has some crazy, wonderful grilled lobster, steak, some purees, just different, all kinds of different cool chefy things that I'm going to show you how to do at home. So if you want to make sure you catch that video, hit that subscription button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. And while you're here, go ahead and check out one of the other videos on the channel, and I'll see you there.